And I've got one or two reactions coming in from outside of this room. Joe on Twitter says, it's time for the government to build nuclear power stations that the country has needed for decades. Bookworm on Twitter says, perhaps industries should look at recycling their heat and waste into energy to help cut their costs. I think many of them do try and do that already. Chester says to me, we will regret if we don't back strategic industries. As a nation, we must become more self-reliant. And what could be more strategic than steel, Stephen Kinnock?
Absolutely right. We've got to stand on our own 2 feet, and you can't do that without a healthy steel industry.
No, I agree with that. Now, conference season has just finished, and we had the big rah-rah Boris speech, which he does whether you like his politics or not. Mind you, there wasn't much politics in it, really, was there? But you know, he does that very, very well. Starmer got heckled by the hard left. Sort of shades of what your father went through all those years ago, not quite as dramatic. I was pleased to see him trying to face down the hard left in the Labour Party, because I think it had become too extreme to be really electable, hadn't it?
I thought there was a really important moment in the speech where Keir was being heckled by some people in the audience, and he turned round to them and he said, are you interested in chanting slogans or changing lives? And the entire hall rose to its feet and chanted, we are here to change lives. And those who just want to chant slogans, they know where the door is. They can leave the party, that's fine, they can go and join a protest group somewhere else. I think what Keir, the contrast between Keir's speech and Boris's couldn't be stronger as well. I mean, what Boris's speech was just a lot of jokes. Some of them were quite good jokes.
No, some of them were very good, actually.
Is what the country now needs.
John Bon Jovi was pretty good, wasn't it?
But does the country need a joker now, or does it need a serious man for serious times? And that's a decision the country will have to make.
I take that point. I understand that point. And yet, somehow, Keir Starmer doesn't have the charisma to cut through, does he?
Well, I think we've been through a difficult time with the pandemic, etc. He hasn't had the opportunity to get out there and engage with the country, but he does and is really setting forward, I think, 3 really key messages. One is that Labour is the party of work and good jobs. We're going to build back in a way that gives people dignity at work, which gives them the kind of wages, but also the kind of sense of self-esteem and value that you want to get through your work. We're going to be the party of sensible financial management. Rachel Reeves coming through with some really good policies on value for money.
That would make a change from Labour's history, wouldn't it?
It's vital that we address that. We've got to learn the lessons. You know, the country has had real doubts about our ability to manage the economy, and if the country has doubts about that, you ain't going to win a general election. And I think the other thing is about setting out a vision for our future as a country post-Brexit. How do we stand on our own 2 feet? How do we rebuild our strategic industries like the steel industry so that we're not over-reliant on countries like China, who are not our friends in the world?
Look, I understand your position on Brexit, but you've accepted it.
Absolutely.
Can we make a success of Brexit, Stephen Kinnock?
Well, I think it's all about how you manage it and how you plan for it. You know, I'd gently remind you, I campained against the second referendum policy.
No. I mean, you're not one of the remote ones.
So
I
accepted it from day one.
I know you did.
Yeah, and I just wanted us to get a good deal that would actually enable our economy to go forward. Actually, of course, the Norway option was one that you promoted yourself in the run-up to the 2016 referendum. So I know a lot of things changed.
Not really.
I know a lot of things changed.
What I said was that Norway could catch their own fish, which we can't.
Right. Okay.
But that's by the by.
Well, let's not relitigate that.
Frankly, I think anybody re-rehearsing the arguments of 2016 is wasting their time. Sure. It's done, it's over, we're moving on.
Yeah.
I just think, though, there's still a section of your party that just haven't really accepted the result.
What matters is what our leader and our front bench are saying, and that is absolutely clear from what Keir is coming forward with, which is saying we've got to see the Trade and Cooperation Agreement as the basis for our future relationship with the European Union, but it is clear that it's got more holes in it than a sieve, and those holes need to be shored up. We need to get supply chains that are working for the economy. We need to make sure that we get the balance right in our labour market so we don't have short-term crises, and absolutely about reskilling people and building an economy that works for the British people. But we have to accept that we've got 500 million consumers on our doorstep. It's a very important export market for us. we've got to be able to do that as well as reach out to other countries around the world. It's not an either-or, it's a both.
No. And it never was. And it never was. And that's been one of the ridiculous parts about the whole European debate. You know, do we trade with Europe or the rest of the world? Well, we've got to trade with both by whatever means. Stephen, I'm going to just drag you in on one last story. One of the reasons for the shortage of lorry drivers, and it's not just here, of course, it's right across Europe, it's everywhere, and there's been a race to the bottom. You know, HGV drivers have been treated terribly. There's been a race to the floor, race to the bottom on wages. I mean, 11 quid an hour they were being paid for doing a very, very responsible, difficult job, having to sleep on roadsides. I mean, tough old game. You know, bad conditions, bad money. So there are big shortages. And yet, partly because of the pandemic, people have been working from home. And I'm thinking particularly about the DVLA, just down the road. It's a South Wales issue affecting the whole country. But the union are threatening, the Public and Commercial Services Union are threatening at the DVLA, despite the fact there are 50,000 backlogged applications for HGV licences, they're threatening to go back on strike. Now, they say that they don't want to all go back and work in the office because of COVID risk, but working from home, well, in my opinion, it leads to lower productivity. What's your message to the PCS union, given that this country desperately needs people with HGV licences? Otherwise, Christmas could be cancelled.
The interesting connection between the two parts of your question is the role of trade unions. And a big reason for why we've had that race to the bottom for HGV drivers is because we've ended up in a de-unionised economy where drivers have been exploited by the big supermarkets, driving wages down, having the race to the bottom. If you look at countries where there's a proper sectoral collective bargaining, you actually get those good terms and conditions, which mean you don't have a race to the bottom for HGV drivers. So that's the first thing I'd say about having a strong trade union representation.
The unions
is absolutely key. But of course, the way the unions work has to be constructive. It's got to be realistic. What happened in the DVLA was utterly terrifying when it happened. It had the largest outbreak of COVID in the country, in any organisation in the country. There were hundreds of people being struck down by it. And I think that there was genuine fear in the workforce, a lot of people who were genuinely scared, and they were made to come in by the management. There was an element of coercion and force in the way that they were treated. And I think we're still seeing some of the backlash.
But we've all been double jabbed now.
But we need to move on. We need to make the economy and the country work. I absolutely accept that. But I do think that there was a really unfortunate breakdown in industrial relations between the employees and the employers at the time where that outbreak happened, and I think that created a genuine fear in people about coming into work.
Let me put you on the spot. As a Labour MP, here we have a trade union threatening to go back on strike. They were on strike briefly in August, and we know during that time the applications, piled up. We have a real, genuine HGV, as we saw with petrol and diesel over the course of the last month. What is your advice to the PCS union right now?
I supported them when they first went out on strike because I felt the way that they had been treated was really unacceptable. We need to really look at the facts now and whether the risk assessment that they've got, which I haven't seen, is justifiable to take further industrial action. If there isn't an absolutely clear case for industrial action, then there should not be.
Nurses go to work every day.
Yeah, of course.
Many people who drive buses, drive trains, they go to work every day. Surely the DVLA need to go to work to get this country out of this crisis.
The point I'm making is that because of the deeply unfortunate events that took place, I think it was last summer, where they had this massive outbreak and a number of their colleagues actually got very, very ill indeed. I think there were 1 or 2 deaths. That has had a really serious impact on morale at the place and a serious breakdown in trust with the employer.
You've said that, and I understand that, but we are here and it matters.
But of course we need to move on.
Yeah, all right. I'll take that. Stephen Kinnock, MP, thank you for joining us here today.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows, and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.